I'm glad you could join us today for the 10th episode of the Salem Painter. Today we're going to do a fall sunset and with a lot of really bright colors that I think will make you very happy. It's a beautiful day here, and hopefully we can make a painting that makes us feel like it's a beautiful day in this painting. What I'm doing right now is coating the canvas with a thin, even coat of liquid white. I do this before every painting almost. It's basically a thin white paint, and it lets you spread colors on the canvas and mix on the canvas very easily. It's very important for this technique. It helps you make the best reflections. It helps to blend out your skies. Sometimes I'll do a painting without liquid white, but it's very rare. I really prefer to use this all the time. Alright, now that we got that covered, I'm going to wash out my brush. And the coffee can I've got down here, I've got paint thinner and a little brush. Just make sure you use the odorless thinner, because if you use turpentine, it's really going to smell bad, and it's not good for painting indoors. Run everybody out of the house. And what I'm doing here, I've got a trash can with a broom handle down the middle, and I use that to beat off the bristles of my brush. Alright, since we're doing a sunset, I think the first thing I'm going to do is come down to my palette and brush out a little thin area of the cadmium yellow. That's one of my favorite yellows to use. It's a very bright color, but you can use whatever colors you like. And for now, we're just gonna put a little bit of that right here in the middle of our canvas. It's always nice if you plan on having water in your painting, which I do in this one, to go ahead and brush a little bit of it down into the bottom of the painting where the water is going to be. That way it kind of reflects. I mean, it won't look exactly the same. Alright, next I'm going to go into a little bit of yellow ochre. I won't even bother washing the brush because this is all going to blend together, and I'm just going to make a little circle. This kind of looks like a orange color almost. A little bit more there. It's not very important how we put it right now because we're going to end up blending a lot of this out. Okay, next I'm going to go into a little bright red, just a tiny touch of it. This red is very strong, and just going to kind of scrub in a little on the outside of this. We're not very worried about how it looks right now because we're going to end up blending it. Just scrape in a little bit. Alright, we're going to go into our alizarin crimson, which is a great color for skies. It looks very bright right now, but by the time you get this blended out, it'll almost disappear. And finally, I want to take a little bit of that crimson color we had and mix it with some blue. It's going to make a very dark lavender color. I kind of want it to be more towards the blue side. You don't want to use very much of the blue because the blue is much stronger than the crimson, and it'll end up eating up the whole sky. Even the lavender color, the purple color we've made, is very bright now that we got it on the canvas. Alright, looks like we're just painting a big rainbow right now, but that's not what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wash out this brush. Okay, I'm going to take a clean, dry 2-inch brush, and I'm just going to start blending out here. Just making like little circles around the edges of these colors and just blending them together. I want to do each little ring of color separately, and once I go out into the darker colors, I don't want to take the same brush back in the center where I've got my other colors, or I'll get all that color mixed in with the yellow and the whole sky be orange. But you know, if that did happen, if I made a mistake and made the whole sky orange, we could still make a beautiful painting with an orange sky. As you can see, our sky's already starting to look much better. Alright, we're going to start down here. Usually our darkest colors are going to be higher up in the sky, and things get lighter as we come towards the horizon. That also is true for the bottom of the painting. When you're painting down here, painting in your trees, bushes, water, things like that, things always get lighter as they go towards the horizon. And we're just evenly blending that. We're going to come back over it again several times. Yeah, I've actually had the chance to go back and watch some of my own shows, and I've been watching and been noticing that I spend the most time on the skies. I usually spend about 20 minutes just getting the sky right. And the reason for that is because it's my favorite part of the painting. This is what makes me happy about painting. This part here. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and clean out my brush. And we're going to come back and do some more blending after that, but I want to get that dark color back into my yellow. So after I clean out the brush, I usually dab it on a paper towel to make sure I got all the color out of it. And we're just going to start coming back and forth across. Just blending this until you can't tell where one color starts or one color ends and another begins. And as you can see, we're getting this darker color down in the middle. We don't really want to cover up our sun, but we do want the sky to blend together. So it's okay to get a little bit of it in there, as long as we don't make our yellow disappear. You know, if you have an area of your sky like right here, it looks a little bit too bright, just work it into some of the other colors. You know, when I see sunsets like this, I always think it's very pretty, and I always stop and stare for a little while. You know, a friend of mine from back home in Georgia, she sent me a photograph that her daughter took while she was kayaking out on the lake, and she asked me if I could paint that painting, and I think I'm going to paint that for her today. This was kind of how the sky looked in that picture. And as I mentioned earlier about putting this color in the water, we want to get a little bit of the colors that we put in the sky. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be an exact reflection. But we're just going to get a few of those colors and blend them into what we got already. You know, with the sky, we make a lot of X-shaped strokes back and forth. But when you're doing water, when we get ready to blend this, you're going to want to go straight across, back and forth. That's what's going to make the sky look different from the rest of the painting. Or give it that water sheen. So I'm going to start doing that with that darker color. Just dragging it out. More water down here. Now, for the most part, water reflects the colors that are in the sky, but if you ever get down to doing it and you feel like maybe it doesn't look like water anymore, maybe you could add a little blue to it coming from the sides and blend it in. And we might do that. Let me see how this looks after I blend it all. And normally I touch the canvas rather softly, but right now, since I'm coming straight across with these long strokes, I'm actually hitting the canvas pretty hard, coming across it, just to rub that value into the canvas. And if you don't know what that means, it's value is basically how dark or how light your color is. So kind of if you took a color like say red and mixed it with a darker color like black, you're going to get a darker color red that looks like maybe I can't think of a good color right now. Maybe a burgundy. That you get that kind of color if you mix in some black, and if you mixed in white, you might get more of a pinker color. A brighter color. All right. There's still a few places. You know, when you're doing this and you're going back and forth and blending, sometimes it's good to kind of step back from your painting a little bit and see what you've got. See if this looks good to you. You know, that's the most important thing, that it looks good to you. I'm not worried about anybody else. We just make what looks good to us and hope that other people like it. And if they don't, that's okay, because you like it. All right. Got our water done. I do think I'm going to come back with just a tiny amount of blue. Darken up my water just a little bit, so it looks more like water. And when I say a tiny bit, I mean like just the tiniest bit you can imagine. I'm going to come back in from the sides, because this blue will make it darker very fast if you get a lot of it. See, just like that there. And remember, things are always darker towards the bottom and get lighter towards the horizon. So when you're putting on fresh coats like this, you want to start at the bottom. All right, and once again, I'm going to come through, just blend back and forth across. Hopefully, when we get done, this will look like water, and it'll still look like it has those reflection colors in it. We don't want to get rid of all that. We work very hard to put it into the water. And as I've said many times before, if something's too bright, just rub it hard, blend it. It's going to mix with the liquid white, and it's going to get lighter. So another reason the liquid white is very amazing for this technique. And we just blend back and forth until we blend out all the streaks. All right. Next, I think we're gonna come forward in the picture and start on some of the other parts. See, I got a couple places in the sky I still need to blend out. This is the time to do it before you come forward, because once you start putting trees and things over the sky, it's very hard to go back and blend it the way you want it. So this is the time to make sure we get that right. All right. Okay. Now we're going to make a dark color. I think we're going to mix a little sap green, a little Van Dyke brown, maybe a little burnt umber, a little Prussian blue. All right. In the picture, there were some trees very far off in the distance. So I just want to come forward in the painting. I'm going to use my 2-inch brush. It wasn't very distinct. The sun was going down. It was behind them. So basically, you're just seeing just shadows, just silhouettes, outlines. And, you know, sometimes if you want a little lighter version of that color, you can mix a little titanium white in. And maybe further back in the background, I remember there being some other trees that were further back. This was in a lake, and the picture was taken from a kayak, so you can see the banks all around. And while it was a very beautiful picture, it was very interesting. I feel like it would be kind of boring as a painting. So as we come forward, I'm going to add some other things in. Maybe some more things in the background. I'm going to go ahead and get my fan brush, get a little bit of that same color, and I'm going to make maybe a couple of trees that stand out above the others back here. That's the great thing about painting. It's unlike photography. You know, if something doesn't look interesting, you can't just add something in. You have to spend all the time to find the perfect subject and take the perfect picture. On photography, on painting, you know, if you want a tree, you just go ahead and put it in there. That's all you got to do. And like I said, this was pretty far off in the distance, so we're not worried about a lot of detail. Just trying to put some little things that give the indication of some trees back here. As always, we look forward to hearing from you. So if you'd like to get in touch with us, if you have any questions or suggestions for what you think we should paint, just drop us a line. You can send us an email at thesalempainter@gmail.com. Our Facebook is facebook.com/thesalempainter. And all of the episodes we film, after they're filmed and turned into the station, they're available on our YouTube channel. And to find that, all you have to do is just search YouTube for the Salem Painter. Alright, this bank was a little bit darker near the bottom, so we'll come down here with some brown paint. Just fill it in some, make little shapes, little like bushes, things like that. Alright, now we're going to take a clean brush, mostly clean. We're going to drag some of this color down into the water. We're going to make reflections. Just make sure you pull it straight down. So you don't pull it straight down, it won't look quite right. And then after we pull it down, we're just going to lightly come across to give it a watery appearance. Everything in water is always across. Just make sure you go across with it. Maybe here's a little point there, so pull that down, cross it. All right. And okay, next I'm gonna come back and put some of that same color along the bank here. This is very far off, you're not gonna see much. Maybe darken up these a little bit. I got it light to make it look like it was further back, but I got it a little bit too light. I'll take some of the dark color and go back over it. A little tree here. And you know, your fan brush is an excellent tool for making things like that because it kind of curves and you can make these different shapes for you that look like bushes. You know, it's great for putting in little protrusions here and there. See, that's simple. It just looks like thousands of little trees off in the distance. Just little taps, and just kind of do these randomly, and don't space them out evenly, because if you do that, it's going to look like you have little fence posts or something going along here, and you don't want it to look like that. You want it to look like trees. I'm very excited because in a couple of weeks, by the time you see this episode, most likely it will have already passed, but in a couple of weeks, my girlfriend and I, we're going to an art festival, and we're going to try to sell some paintings. She does some really nice acrylic paintings. Basically, she paints like a big rainbow scene. It actually kind of looks like these do. She'll paint that in the background using acrylics, and then she'll come back over it and paint neat designs with black acrylic paint, and then go over those with black oil paint. And the end result, it makes a really nice textured feel, and it looks very nice. She even uses some of the special acrylic paints that do things like glow in the dark and glow under black lights, and they always look really good. I just want to go in and do this until it looks good to you. If something looks weird, looks like you're making fence posts, well, it's simple to just come back and fix it. And once again, take some of that color there. I probably should have actually done this side first because it's in the back. Anything that's further back in the background, far away, you want to go ahead and do that first before you do everything else. And just lightly come across. We don't want to destroy this. And now, since I had to come back and do that, I'm going to go back and cover up where I messed it up with a little brown paint. Okay. I'm going to put a little more in here. It looks like bushes covering up the feet of some of these trees. Maybe as you get closer into the painting, you'll want to put some brown in here. Make it look a little bit darker. Maybe put a little more detail. Maybe there's some branches hanging off these trees. Alright. Now that we got that done, I'm going to go take a little bit of my liquid white, and I'm just going to spread some out on my palette, very thin. Before I go back into it, I'm going to wipe off my palette knife because you don't want a lot on there. And just make a little cut across it. And as you can see, we got a little small roll there, not very much. And then we're going to come across and just cut in some water lines. you want these to be basically straight. They don't have to be perfect, and if you don't like how they look, you can go back over them with your knife until they just rub into the canvas. You won't even be able to see them anymore. Now, one thing you do have to be careful about when making your water lines like this is that the liquid white takes longer to dry than the other paint. So you want to be careful not to touch that for a little while longer. Usually these paintings are dry in about a week, but the liquid white it can stay wet for up to 2 to 3 weeks. So you'll want to watch that when you're doing your painting. Just straight across. This painting is a very simple painting. We haven't done one like this before, but it's definitely one I would recommend you trying your first time. It's something that's very easy to do. If you're watching this on TV, you may not be painting along with us, but if you go to our YouTube channel, you can always go back and pause and rewind and watch things over again until you figure it out. And if you still have any questions like that, you can contact me at any time. I'd be happy to answer them. I'm hoping to maybe someday set up some art lessons here in the Salem area and teach some classes on how to do this method, because I'm a beginner at this myself. I believe this is my 23rd painting, I think. I forgot to check before I left the house. I always sign the back of them with my name and a number so I know exactly how many I've done. So if I can do this, you can do this too. All it takes is a desire to do it. And you have to practice. That's important with anything. Alright. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come forward in the painting. And maybe I'll make a little land projection right here. This was not in the photograph that she sent me, but I think it's going to make an excellent addition to it. And maybe when I get forward in the painting, sometimes I like to use my old messed up rough brush. The bristles go all over the place, but it's perfect for making these kind of brush things here on the painting that look like little grasses and things like that sticking out. Now, a lot of times you hear me say that things get darker as we go down in our painting. Away from the horizon, things get darker. Well, that is true, but when I say darker, I don't necessarily mean darker as in like, dark black or brown. I mean darker in value. So, if we have things here in the foreground that are very bright, we should make them bright. And I think here in the foreground, I want to put a big tree. I love making trees. One of my favorite things to make. It looks like we have a lot of evergreen trees, but I think I want to make something a little different today. Alright, we're going to get a little bit of brown, Van Dyke brown on our palette knife. Just stretch it out until it's a little bit thinner. And I'm going to make a tree by just going up. And I'm just going to touch here. Just touch. And maybe this is a real tall tree. It goes way up in the air. Just kind of drag across. We can make this thicker if we want. Right now we're just laying out where our tree is going to go. Maybe it's going to be thicker down at the bottom. Most trees are. make it thicker, we just put on some more paint. I'm not sure if you can actually tell on camera here, but I'm putting this paint on rather thick. It's almost like icing a cake. Just coming up with it. Just barely touching with the knife. I let the canvas take off the paint it wants, and I just go with it. I'll let this happen. Alright. A little bit. I'm going to step back and take a look at what I got so far. Alright. And maybe our tree is a little thicker down at the bottom and branches out in several different directions. Alright, and I think on my tree, I want another little protrusion coming out right here. Another limb. And maybe on this side, another one coming out this way. You know, a good way to make your trees look right is to sometimes start at the top and come down with more limbs, because usually wherever a limb hits the tree, it's a little bit thicker. So that way you can make sure your tree looks as thick as it should everywhere it's supposed to. Maybe this is a little bit thicker. And, you know, sometimes people say that, oh, I can never paint because I can't draw, but you can do this. Even if you don't have a steady hand, sometimes it's nice to be a little shaky. It makes your limbs look more natural. And you can do as many of these as you like. I'm just going to do a few more and call it good because we have a limited amount of time here. But you could just spend all day painting limbs on this tree if you wanted to. Alright, there we go. You know, I mentioned in one of our previous episodes, I believe it might have been the last one, that I play in a band. And back in May we got a chance to go on a tour of Japan. I've been playing in the band for quite a while, but since I moved we haven't really played together much. And I definitely miss doing it. But when we were in Japan, we met some of the nicest people. It was awesome. We had a lot of friends. A lot of people I met, I felt like they'd be my friends for life. So, you know, 50 years from now, if I'm still alive and I go to Japan, I feel like I'll still know those people and I'll still go hang out with them. There were so many amazing things and amazing foods. That was one of my favorite parts of it. I like to eat, as you can probably tell. Alright, another little limb here. And see here, now this limb that's coming up, it looks like it's a little bit too small because I've put so many limbs on it. So we can just come back from that limb and just expand this, which is one of the reasons it's helpful to paint going down. Alright, I like this tree so far, but it looks a little bit boring, I think. So once I get done thickening this up, we're going to come back and put some highlights and things like that on it. See if it becomes the tree we want it to be. Alright, so after you get done here, you'll want to clean off your palette knife. All you do is just wipe it with a paper towel. It's very simple to clean it off. Just wipe it kind of hard. And next, I think this is going to be a birch tree. So we're going to have some titanium white. And we're going to do it the same way we did the brown when we did the tree. But we want this to look like it's coming around. So we're going to just put some paint on and just kind of lightly scrape around the edge, like kind of in a circle. It's going to look like birch bark when we get done with it, we hope. You just kind of do this lightly. If you've ever seen one of the shows where we painted mountains, it's the same way. You just barely run across it. Just let the canvas and the paint take what it wants. We're not even pressing down on the knife here. With the brown, it was like we were icing a cake and we were pressing down rather hard. Here we're not going to be doing that. We're just going to very lightly come across. And this is another one of the things that can take a little while to dry. So when you lay on paint like this, be very careful with it while it's drying. And you'll want to do this to every limb. Once you start, you'll want to go do the same thing to it. Put a highlight on one side. Look like the little white bark that peels off these trees. And when we get done with the painting, we may not even see all this, but it's still important to put it there because it's going to be there. And if we put leaves on this, which I think we will, you'll know that that color's still there in the background if you see it through the leaves. We always talk about how we want to paint what's in the back first. Well, the same goes for a tree. If you're painting a tree, you want to paint the little highlights and things that are going to be there before you start putting on the other parts. See, it's getting a little hard for me because it's going at a weird angle. I'm right-handed. And if you go off of the tree a little bit, don't worry about it too much. You can always paint over it with some leaves, something like that. Or you can just come back and paint another limb over it. Sometimes it's nice to paint trees like this and not put any leaves on them. Maybe it's dead. Dead trees are a part of nature too. So it looks really nice to put them into your painting. Can't forget those. Alright. Now that I'm done here, I'll wipe off my knife again. I'm going to come back and get some of this dark color that we used. Just very lightly come across and just tap in some color on the tips of these branches, wherever you think leaves would be. it doesn't have to be on every branch or every little protrusion you made. Most of this, like I said, is getting covered up anyway. But as you can see, when you're looking through the tree, you can still see branches. You're not going to see every branch. You could certainly paint them all if you wanted to, but it's not necessary. Now if you use your brush, your 2-inch brush, and go to the side like this, these leaves are going to kind of look like they're hanging down. But if you change the angle of your brush and go up, it's going to look like they're growing up, like they're going out. So, change up your angle a little bit, however you think the leaves will grow. And just keep it a very dark color. I mean, not just green, mix in some brown, stuff like that with it. Also just depends on what kind of tree you're painting. Alright, after I get done with that, I'm going to mix a little bit of the yellow in with it, with the sap green. Make a brighter color. I'm going to come back and just highlight wherever we think light might hit. The light is behind this tree, but you're still going to get a little bit of light hitting off from the other parts of the sky. Reflected light off the lake, things like that. And as we come down, automatically it's going to start getting darker. We want it to be lighter at the top of the highlight, and that's for each individual little tuft of leaves, I guess. You want it to be brighter at the top and get darker as it comes down. We got some leaves hanging out a little bit further. Trees aren't shaped perfectly. In some places where you think there would be leaves, there are no leaves because they've already fallen off. Alright, and now that we're done with that, this is one of my favorite parts. It's when it comes time to start highlighting the bushes and stuff like that. Maybe all these should be separate bushes, so you don't have to wash the brush, but if you get it too dark, the darker color is going to interfere with the other colors, because your yellow is going to turn green, things like that. Alright, I think I'm going to take my 1-inch brush, do some more highlights here. This is a brush that's all torn up, so it's excellent for making like little brushy things like that. Just the same as that 2-inch brush I had earlier. And you can sometimes make it look like there's flowers and other stuff with just a tap. Each of these bushes is a separate bush, so each one you do, it might look like sometimes I'm just coming across here and just going all the way down, but I'm not. Each bush is separate. It's going to be more highlighted on the top than it is on the bottom. Some over this tree, put some behind it. We don't want it just looking like the tree is sitting out there in the water. Uh-oh. See that, when I just did that, I put on a little too much paint, so if that ever happens, you can just come across with your knife and just cut it off the canvas. It's that easy. Just wipe it off. There's still too much here. Cut it off the canvas. Wipe it off. And this is very easy to repair. We go back with our dark undercolor, paint it in. And after we're done with that, we can go back and put highlight color in over it. when you load your brush up with color to do these bushes, you can kind of press up or down to make little bristles. I'm pressing up in this case. And then when you come back, you're going to want to put some down to the water. To do that, just go ahead and do the same color, pressing the opposite direction that you pressed when you were doing it. Maybe we got a little brown in here. Alright, we're going to put a bank here. We're going to take some more of that brown color. Got to have something for all these bushes to sit on, don't we? And you just follow kind of how you think the land would go. If you think it's coming downhill, maybe you want to go down like that, which in here definitely looks like it is, so just go across with it. And then maybe wipe that off. Take a little of the burnt umber, mix with some white, just kind of leave it marbled. We'll put some highlights going across here. And just barely touching that. We don't want to destroy the brown color underneath. And we want to make this look like it's part of it. We don't want to make it look like it's just sitting on top of the bushes. So maybe we'll take a little fan brush, get some green and yellow, come back and put some little grassy things along here. And I need to wash off one of my brushes, so go ahead and do that. Done turned my paint thinner blue already, but you know, it's okay because the paint thinner will settle, and after you let it sit there for a couple of days, all the paint will sink to the bottom. So the only paint thinner I lose is the paint thinner that I end up flopping into the trash can. So one can of paint thinner will last me at least 10 or 15 paintings. Okay. I'm going to take a little brown, put on that brush, and we're just going to pull down. Wash it again. What I'm doing here is creating a reflection. I put the brown on there because I didn't pull any down from the bushes beforehand. Okay. Go ahead and straighten out this part before we go on. See, my brush was still very wet, so repair that before I go on. And as you can see, I'm just pulling from the edge. Alright. Now that we've pulled this down, we want to go lightly across with it, just very lightly. Do it again. All right. Now the last thing I'm going to do, wash off my liner brush. I'm going to go right into my liquid white. Let's put some on here. When she sent me this painting, one of the most interesting things about it was the fact that behind the kayak that they were rowing were just rows and rows of little interesting water shapes that were reflecting. And I want to make it kind of look like that. It just went back as far as you can see. It doesn't actually end up looking like that sometimes, but you know, if nothing else, you can always go back and blend these in. Like I said, I don't really like how that looks, so go back and blend it into the canvas, just like I was talking about before. Anytime you don't like something, you just blend it back in. That's also a way to add interesting highlights if you ever decide to, like, you feel like something reflects off the water a little more. Maybe you've got a cloud up in the sky. Well, you can just put that down into your water. And once again, just scrub kind of hard until it blends out, and then blend from the side. Alright, we've got a few more minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and come back and reflect this tree into the water. It doesn't have to be a perfect reflection either, but we just want to put some color down. And then I'm going to clean my brush. Get paint done all over myself. All right. Pull down and just lightly go across. Alright, got that done. I'm gonna come blend in some of the edges here. Alright, now I'm going to step back and take a look at what I've got. Alright, now that I've stepped back and looked, I notice that here I've still got a little bit of brown left in my reflection. So, I mean, I put the brown there, but it looks like a streak instead of part of the reflection. So, once again, come in and just blend it across in the reflection. Remember, water always goes side to side. You want side to side strokes. Now that we've got our land here, we're going to want to go back and do the same thing that we did before. We need to get a little bit of liquid white and make a water line. Once again, you want these to be basically straight. They don't have to be perfect, but if they're going off to the side, it just won't look right. It'll look like your water's going to run off. You want your water to stay in the painting. Alright, and I think that we're going to call that a finished painting. I'm glad that you joined us today to watch this episode, and I hope that you learned a lot. If you have any questions, like I said, feel free to contact me. I always love to hear from people. I like to know that people are watching this. Painting makes me happy, and I hope that you'll give it a try, and it'll make you happy. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.